Well, we are witnessing a time of political upheaval, a staggering economy, wars, and rumors of wars everywhere. And in fact, we're even seeing some auspicious signs in the heavens. Is there an ancient mystery that lies behind everything that we're witnessing, from the rise and fall of the stock market to the rise and fall of nations? Well, my guest today hopes to possibly answer that question. This is Jonathan Cahn, and he's the author of two New York Times bestseller books. The first is The Harbinger, and then his new book, The Mystery of the Shemitah. It predicts a biblical pattern which indicates that financial collapse may be coming in 2015. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining the show today. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I've seen some other interviews that you've done. You sort of mentioned that you didn't really want to write this book, The Mystery of the Shemitah, because you weren't really interested in setting up predictions and specific dates and things like that. But it sort of builds off your 2012 best-selling novel, The Harbinger, which was a fictional story suggesting that the 9/11 terrorism attack was a divine warning to the United States. So talk to me a little bit about that first novel and then how that leads us to The Mystery of the Shemitah.
Yeah, The Harbinger is framed in a story, but it's something very real, and it's a mystery that goes back to the last days of ancient Israel, when 9 prophetic warnings appear in the land, and they are warning the nation of destruction, and the nation basically ignores them and is destroyed. Now, the eerie thing, or the stunning thing, is those same 9 harbingers, or 9 prophetic signs, are now reappearing on American soil, starting with 9/11, but they have continued. In fact, since the book came out, they have continued to manifest. They are precise, they are exact, and they are warning that America is now the nation in danger of coming calamity. So that's what the Harbinger reveals. And from that, one of the mysteries that comes out of that is called the Shemitah. So that's how the mystery of the Shemitah began.
And then so what is the mystery of the Shemitah? And has it begun?
Yeah, the mystery of the Shemitah is a 3,000-year-old mystery from the Bible that actually lies behind everything from the rise and fall of the economy, the rise and fall of Wall Street, when Wall Street collapses, the rise and fall of nations, even the rise of America and what may be the fall of America. This thing is so precise that as far as I know, it's the only thing in existence that actually gives the exact dates of when things happen, down to the hours, down to the seconds. I mean, literally forecasting the exact crashing days of Wall Street. It also is really the key for those who know about end time prophecy. It's also the key, that's also the missing key of things that are happening from Israel to major world events. And so this mystery of the Shemitah has been affecting our lives from the moment we were born, really affecting from our bank accounts to world history itself. And we are in a Shemitah year right now. That's one of the reasons I didn't want people to focus on dates. I do give dates, but it's a bigger principle. So this mystery begins actually on Mount Sinai. When the law comes, it's called the law of the Shemitah. And basically, to understand it, it's this. Every 7 years was a Sabbath year. It's called the Shemitah. And during that year, there was no reaping, no sowing of the land. Everything came to a rest. And on the last day of the Shemitah, the last day was called, in Hebrew, was called Elul 29. That is the 29th day of the month of Elul. On that day comes a wipeout. All debt is wiped out, all credits wiped out, all the financial accounts are wiped clean. Now, the Shemitah was supposed to be a blessing, but when Israel turned away from God, the Shemitah comes back, not as a blessing, but as a sign of judgment on a nation that has once known God, but now is driving God out of its life. And this ultimately would lead to the destruction of Israel. So the question here is, could this ancient mystery, the Shemitah, still be in effect? Could it be affecting us right now? Could it be a warning with what is happening in America? And the answer, and that's why I wrote the book, The Mystery of the Shemitah, the answer is incredibly yes. It's in effect. It's affecting us. It has affected us. It is affecting us, and I believe it will affect us.
And once again here in 2015.
Yeah.
Now, in the book, which obviously goes into great detail, we don't have enough time here today to cover it all, but it talks about the last 5 great economic crashes in the last 40 years have all lined up with the Shemitah years as well. And so I'm curious, even with that, could someone have knowledge of this and rig the stock markets with that knowledge? We've got an article up on InfoWars now talking about that the rigging is no longer a conspiracy theory. Like now they're saying, wow, this is actually something that's happening. So could that be something else that could be exploited?
Well, I think a few things. I mean, there can be those things, and there certainly are people who rig the markets. And yet this thing has been happening. I mean, for not only the last 40 years, it's actually been happening since. I mean, the over a century. You can see it. It is happening so exactly that even if people try to rig the markets, first of all, most of them are not religious or they're not following the Bible, number one. Number two, you could not make everything happen down, I mean, to the day and happening so exactly. Most people on Wall Street don't understand the Shemitah. Once when I wrote the book, people from Wall Street were contacting me and saying, some of them saying there is a 7-year cycle. And when I looked after I wrote the book, they actually are identifying the 7-year cycle on the time of the Shemitah, but they have no idea what the Shemitah is. So I'd say it's bigger than that. There are conspiracies, but this is bigger than that. When you look at the last 40 years, Dan, it's the greatest crashes or the collapsing of the Wall Street, the long-term collapses are the years 1973, 1980, 87, 2000, and 2007. Every single one of them happens on a 7-year cycle. That's the Shemitah. Every single one of them happens at the time of the Shemitah. But not only that, if you look at the greatest collapses in world history, I mean, just in modern times, the top three, which is number 3 is 1937, 1938. That's the year of the Shemitah. The number 2 is 2007, 2008, the Great Recession, year of the Shemitah. Number 1 is the Depression, greatest year is 1930, 31, year of the Shemitah. Every single one happens in this time period. And it even gets more precise because actually there's a certain time of the year when these things have to collapse. Biblically, the time of the year is called the month of Tishri. That's the time that actually closes the Shemitah, this 7-year cycle. So it's the time that manifests this wipeout that comes at the end. Well, if you look at the greatest day crashes in Wall Street history, the amazing thing is the majority of them all happen at the same time of year. They happen at the time of the month of Tishri. That's why for years economists have been boggled. Why do all these great crashes happen around September, October? Well, that's the biblical month of Tishri. But it even gets more like intense and stunning because if you look at the last 2 cycles, which is 2001 and 2007, the amazing thing is this phenomenon, or actually 2008, this phenomenon is getting more and more precise and more powerful or stunning. For example, 2001, you have 9/11 happens. It causes the greatest point crash in world history. Well, when does that take place? It's September 17th, 2001. That's the greatest crash. What day is that? That date is Elul 29, the exact day of the Shemitah that comes once every 7 years. That's the day appointed to wipe out the financial realm in the Bible, the exact day, and it's a sign of judgment. If you go 7 years into the future and you find you have the other greatest crash in world history to this day, September 29, 2008, greatest crash ever. When does that take place? On September 29th. And the biblical calendar, it's Elul 29, the exact same biblical day that comes once every 7 years. So the 2 greatest crashes in world history each happen exactly 7 biblical years apart, down to the day, down to the hour, the minute, the second, on the day that's appointed once in 7 years to wipe out the financial realm. So, I mean, this is stunning. I don't believe no matter what, anybody could have put this thing together. I mean, that's how precise it is down to the day and down to the seconds.
Right. Well, I mean, I've definitely, just from my own experience reading the Bible, I've noticed how, we still sort of see that with our banking. You have bankruptcies clear themselves after 7 years. Your credit report, bad things on your credit seem to be wiped away after a 7-year period. So we see this is still something that's been in play for a long time. Now, you mentioned that it's supposed to be a blessing to wipe away this debt. But here, when we see these economic crashes, who is benefiting from that?
Yeah, well, that's, it is, there's 2 sides. That's right. There are 2 sides to the Shemitah. It's supposed to be a blessing, and a nation that follows God, there's a blessing. But if a nation that has known God, like America, which is very, very much a parallel to Israel, turns away from God, the Shemitah turns and becomes a sign of judgment, actually comes by force. So yeah, you have, instead of a good wiping away of debts, you have crashes, you have recessions, you have all these things. But the thing is even bigger because not only does this affect the economy, but this actually determines the rising and the falling of nations. And that's why it's very significant with America, because if you look at the word Shemitah in Hebrew can mean the shaking or the fall or the collapse. Well, one of the years of the Shemitah was 1917. That year is a year of a great, cataclysmic global shaking, World War I, the greatest shaking to that day. That's the turning point year. That's the year that America enters the war, begins its rise to superpower. You watch, at this time, you've got the collapse of kingdoms, collapse of empires during the time of the Shemitah, and you have the rise of America. Well, if you fast forward 4 Shemitahs or 28 years, it takes you to the Shemitah of 1945, another global cataclysm, another world shaking. In fact, the conflict actually begins in 1938 with Hitler seizing Europe. It actually is, that's the 1938 is the year of the Shemitah. The war follows the cycle of the Shemitah. The Shemitah ends 1945, first week of September. The World War II ends the same week. It ushers in the collapse of power and the rise of power, the rise of America to superpower, the Cold War, new economic world order, everything. So, and actually this is followed down. Even the year 2001, year of the Shemitah, actually means shaking. And when the Shemitah reaches its greatest, its last week, that's the week heading to that wipeout day. Well, you've got 9/11 comes in. You literally have, Shemitah can mean the fall or the collapse. You literally have the fall or the collapse of towers representing America's glory. This is a warning in the Bible of, there's a thing in the book called the mystery of the towers. And one of the things is that the rising of towers actually links to the rise of power. What does the fall of towers foreshadow of? All these things are coming together. And the warning of the Shemitah is if a nation drives away God, the God of its blessings, those blessings will end and the American age will end as we know it. And we are, again, in one right now.
And so you're saying that the Shemitah year has begun now. So has anything come about this year that you've seen?
Yeah, well, a few things. First of all, when the Shemitah began, we're right now in the center of it. And again, I'm not, Leanna, one of the things is why I want to be careful. I don't want people setting dates that nothing has to, we can't put God in a box. Nothing has to happen every time. However, in view of what has happened, I would be aware of it. First of all, a very major thing happened that escaped most people. The Shemitah began in the autumn of 2014. And what happened is within 2 weeks, well, actually within 1 week of it beginning, and remember the Shemitah can mean the fall, within 1 week, America was overtaken. Russia became the greatest, actually the top nuclear power on earth. It actually surpassed it the first week of the Shemitah. The second week of the Shemitah came something even more major. And that is that the American age that began in the year 1871, when we became the strongest economic power on earth, came to an end. America was dethroned as the Shemitah began. It is now China has taken the crown of America. Now I've warned since the Harbinger came out, I've warned that if we don't turn back to God, there is going to be the crown that America has worn as the head of nations is going to be removed. We are seeing the beginning of that right now. And so we are watching actually when the same week that the Shemitah began, Wall Street went crazy for about a month. Now, the pattern of the last Shemitahs have been that often at the beginning of the Shemitah, you don't notice anything, but there are often foreshadows. Well, the major thing, if something's going to happen, the major period is going to be coming up is always at the end of the Shemitah as we approach September. That's the time of that wipeout. I'm not saying it has to happen, but I believe we need to be aware of it. And interesting, people who look at signs, one of the signs in the Bible of judgment is the darkening of the sun or an eclipse. Not that it always is, but it can be. On the day that we get to the wipeout day, Elul 29 of this Shemitah cycle, the sun's going to be darkened at that time. The last time that happened was 1987 when the sun was darkened at Elul 29. It led into Black Monday, the worst day crash in world history. I believe we are going to watch, if we don't turn back, if this nation keeps on going on its course, we're going to watch the fall of America or the shaking of America. And the American age that you and I and all our listeners have known since we were born is going to come to an end. And the Shemitah is very exact, very precise. And I believe this is a real warning that we need to be ready.
Right. And I know a lot of our audience was pretty interested in the fact that there was this phenomenon. It's not super rare, but with all of the blood moons and
Yeah,
the solar
yeah.
eclipses and everything, and they were coinciding with Jewish holidays. And so, is that something that's very significant for you as well?
Yeah, well, interesting. I mean, yeah, not to, and I know Mark Biltz, who is the one who came up with the blood moon theory. Well, yeah, not that we want to be dogmatic again that it has to, but I believe it's significant to watch for. For instance, the majority of the blood moon period is the year of the Shemitah. That's the majority of it. And when it comes to a head, guess when it comes to a head? It's September 2015, which is that same key period of the Shemitah. But the other thing is, one of the things that people don't realize when they look at end time prophecy is one of the most amazing things about end time prophecy has to do with the Shemitah. One of the things I put at the end of the book, it's called the mystery of the seventh Shemitah, and that's this. When you get to every seventh Shemitah, or that's 7 times 7, that's 49 years, it ushers in a super Shemitah called that we know it's called the Jubilee. And the Jubilee, when that happens, everybody is restored to their land. If you lost your land, you lost your inheritance, you lost your ancestral home, on the Jubilee, you return to your home and you get that home back. Well, one of the things about end time prophecy, as we're speaking about that, is that we know that end time prophecy says that Israel has to be restored to the land and to Jerusalem, which it lost in 2,000 years ago. That has to happen. Well, could this mystery of the seventh Shemitah actually give us the exact times when these prophetic events have to happen? And I'll give you just a taste of it. Here it is. The Shemitah, or the seventh Shemitah, or the Jubilee, this restoration period, has to happen the year after a Shemitah, because it's the 50th year, and the 49th year, or the seventh Shemitah, that's a Shemitah. So here's the thing. If you look at the year 1917, you have the year of the Shemitah. At the end of it would be this prophetic period that begins September 1917 to September 1918. Did anything significant happen with prophecy or restoration? Well, here's the amazing thing. In that exact period, Britain is winning the First World War. The Ottoman Empire crashes. The land of Israel goes to Britain. Britain issues the Balfour Declaration, gives the land back to the Jewish people in the restoration, the Jubilee coming back to the land in the exact time period. And if you count 7 Shemitahs later to the next 7th Shemitah, it gives you the period that is 1966 September to 1967 September. Right in the middle of that comes the next prophetic restoration, the Six-Day War, when Israel regains Jerusalem. Well, here's the thing. I'm not being dogmatic. I'm not saying it has to be. But if we follow this one more time, where does it take us? It takes us to the Shemitah that we're in right now. That's the 7th Shemitah. And the period of prophetic restoration would be September 2015 to September 2016. Now, again, not being dogmatic, but if it follows the pattern of what happened before, it would mean war in the Middle East, and a war resulting in the next piece or puzzle piece of prophecy. So this is so big. I mean, we're talking about from our pocketbooks, our bank accounts, to America, to prophecy, to the end time. So it's very specific. It's very exact.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing that happening. A lot of downplay here. We've got major military exercise going on across America, people prepping. We see the elite are kind of building up bases and bunkers in New Zealand and countries far away, a lot of civil unrest. So we're sort of seeing the signs, but we're also seeing the signs in the heavens as well. Now, what do you suggest people do? Is there something that people should do to prepare for this? I mean, we're seeing the writing on the wall.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll give a few quick things. One is, I mean, I'm not a financial analyst, but I would say this. Personally, I would not feel safe putting my investment in the stock market at this time, number one. I believe that safety is wise. I believe it's also wise to have a store of essentials. If, for instance, if things broke down, if services broke down, that you'd be okay. I think that's wise anyway. Beyond that, and I'm going to give you really the highest answer is this: when people say, I want safety. What should I do? Should I build a bunker? Well, in Hebrew, the word for safety is Yeshua, and Yeshua is Jesus. So the ultimate thing is this. Listen, no matter if you are outside of him, and I'm telling you, I'm Jewish, and I'm telling you that if you're outside of Jesus, there's no safety. The only safety is inside him. And if you're in him and your life is not right in God's will, get it right. Get right today. You don't know how long you have. And what I'm saying here is the time is late. We are witnessing things that we have never witnessed in American history. We're witnessing an apostasy. We're witnessing a moral decay that the Bible gives very clear answers of what happens when a nation goes this way. We're witnessing America and Israel, at its worst relationship. We're witnessing all these things happening fast. The time is late. So what I would say is there are many wise things to do, but the most important thing is get right with God, and you don't have to worry, you don't have to fear, because you are in safety, which again in Hebrew is Yeshua, and that's Jesus.
Wow. Well, Jonathan, where can everyone get your book and stay in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. The Mystery of the Shemitah is available everywhere, online, offline, from Amazon to Walmart, everywhere. The Harbinger is also available everywhere you look, online or offline. To get in touch, if people want more, or to get in touch, and this all comes from a lot of other things, so we give out free resources all the time. Just remember, Hope of the World is the ministry. It's hopeoftheworld.org, and we'll be glad to help you with anything.
Well, thank you so much. All very interesting, very thorough book there. The Harbinger and the Mystery of the Shemitah go hand in hand, so be sure to check that out. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you, Leanne.
That's it for the show tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And you can also become a subscriber to prisonplanet.tv, where you'll find all of our reports, the nightly news, our movies, rants, and really about 18 years worth of content. And you can share your username and password with up to 20 people at the same time. And of course, your subscription will help out the InfoWars operation. Thank you so much for tuning into the show tonight. We'll see you here Monday, 7 p.m. Central.
From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new InfoWars Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.